Have you ever felt a chill on a dark night as if something ancient watches from the shadows? For centuries, humanity has filled the darkness with monsters, none more famous than the vampire. The vampire is a paradox, both dead and alive, monstrous yet tragically human. It embodies our deepest fears about death, disease, and what lies beyond the grave. The vampire myth is a tapestry woven from global folklore and superstition. The idea of the dead preying on the living is primal, tapping into our anxiety about mortality. Early stories were not about charming aristocrats but grotesque corpses driven by hunger, a reflection of grief and fear that the dead do not rest. These tales explain the unexplainable mysterious illness, preserved corpses, and the chaos of life. The myth gave people a sense of control, a ritual to perform, and an enemy to fight. But where did this legend begin? To answer that, we must journey back in time and across continents. The vampire legend evolved slowly, borrowing traits from demons and spirits worldwide. Our quest to understand the vampire is a journey into the heart of human fear and fascination. It's a story that reveals as much about us as it does about the creatures we imagine. So let's explore these ancient roots, tracing the path from forgotten graves to Gothic literature. The night is long, and the vampire story is just beginning. The fear of blood-drinking entities is ancient, predating the word vampire. In Mesopotamia, the Lilu and Lilitu preyed on women and infants, supernatural predators embodying life's fragility. Persia had ghouls, part demon, part human, feasting on the dead in graveyards. The horror of disturbed corpses is a close cousin to the vampire's act of preying on the living. Ancient Egyptians believed restless spirits could return if burial rites were neglected. Greeks told of Lamia, a queen-turned-child-eating demon, and Romans feared the Strix, a night creature feeding on infants. These monsters weren't vampires as we know them, but they're the myth's ancestors. They established the terrifying idea of a being that steals life to sustain its own existence. The fear of being preyed upon by something not quite human is universal and timeless. These early myths laid the ground for the European vampire. The legend would soon take on a new, more familiar form. The darkness was fertile and the vampire was ready to rise. The classic vampire took shape in Eastern Europe, especially in Slavic folklore. Life was harsh, and death was ever-present. Plagues, famines, and wars left people desperate for answers. The vampire was a terrifying, reanimated corpse, not a romantic figure. Descriptions matched decomposing bodies, bloated, dark-skinned, with blood at the mouth, misunderstood signs of decay. These became proof of vampirism, fueling hysteria. Outsiders, unbaptized, excommunicated, or those with physical anomalies were suspected of becoming vampires. When illness struck, suspicion fell on the recently deceased. Communities developed rituals, sharp objects in graves, burying bodies face down, or exhuming and staking corpses. These acts were seen as public health measures, not desecration. The vampire myth was a way to explain and control the chaos of death. It was a desperate attempt to protect the living from the unknown. In these villages, the vampire was both a monster and a warning. The legend spread, evolving with each retelling. The vampire's shadow grew longer across Europe. The Slavic vampire had a Mediterranean cousin, the Greek Vrikolakas. Like its Slavic counterpart, it was a reanimated corpse, blamed for disease and misfortune. Improper burial, excommunication, or even a cat stepping over the body could trigger the transformation. The Vrikolakas didn't always drink blood. Sometimes it simply knocked on doors, dooming those who answered. Its appearance, swollen, undecomposed, mirrored the Slavic vampire. These creatures were seen as monstrous pests, not tragic figures. Communities responded with exhumations and rituals, calling priests or destroying the body to end the haunting. The goal was to cleanse the community and restore order. Greek legends show how widespread and adaptable the fear of the restless dead was. Each culture shaped the myth to fit its own anxieties. The vampire was everywhere, always changing, always feared. The legend continued to evolve, crossing borders and oceans. The undead haunted not just Europe but China as well, in the form of the Jiangshi, the stiff corpse. The Jiangshi hopped with outstretched arms, a product of rigor mortis and Chinese folk beliefs. Improper funeral rites or violent death could trap a soul, reanimating the body to absorb the life force or qi of the living. Like the European vampire's thirst for blood, the Jiangshi's hunger for qi was a warning to respect the dead. Unlike cunning European vampires, the Jiangshi was mindless, sensing victims by their breath. Holding your breath became a way to survive an encounter. Taoist traditions offered protection mirrors, peachwood, handbells, and sealing talismans. The Jiangshi's unique traits reflect China's distinct fears and customs. Every culture creates its own monsters, shaped by its beliefs and anxieties. The Jiangshi endures in folklore and cinema, a testament to the universal fear of the restless dead. The vampire myth is global, endlessly adaptable. From Europe to Asia, the undead walk among us. The legend's next transformation was about to begin. The Age of Enlightenment brought science and skepticism to vampire-ridden Europe. Reports of vampire hysteria in Eastern Europe reached Western capitals, prompting official investigations. Doctors and officers exhumed bodies, documenting bloated corpses and blood at the mouth, signs they recognized as natural decay. Their reports aimed to debunk the myth but often made vampires seem more real to the public. The case of Arnold Pale, a Serbian soldier, became infamous. His exhumed body matched vampire descriptions, fueling further panic. Science began to explain away superstition, but the stories only spread wider. The vampire was no longer just rural folklore, it became a topic of debate among intellectuals. The myth was evolving, moving from graveyards to drawing rooms. Rational explanations clashed with deep-seated fears. The vampire was ready for its next transformation, into a creature of literature and imagination. The legend would soon find immortality on the page. The age of the Gothic vampire was dawning. As belief in real vampires faded, the creature found new life in literature. 19th-century writers, especially in the Gothic tradition, reimagined the vampire. Gone was the grotesque peasant revenant. In its place stood a sophisticated, seductive aristocrat. John Polidori's The Vampire introduced Lord Ruthven, a charming predator moving through high society. The vampire became a symbol of Victorian anxieties, decadence, predation, and forbidden desire. The bite was now intimate, even erotic, making the monster both terrifying and alluring. Sheridan Le Fanu's Carmilla added the female vampire and themes of same-sex desire. The literary vampire was cunning, attractive, and dangerous, a far cry from its folkloric roots. Each new story added layers of complexity and allure. The stage was set for the ultimate vampire to emerge. The myth was now a powerful tool for exploring society's deepest fears and fantasies. The vampire had become a true icon of Gothic literature. Its most famous incarnation was about to be born. In 1897, Bram Stoker's Dracula defined the vampire for generations. Stoker blended folklore, history, and literary tradition to create Count Dracula, a character of ancient evil and chilling sophistication. The novel established much of today's vampire lore: shape-shifting, hypnotic powers, aversion to garlic and crucifixes, and the stake through the heart. Dracula was a creature of contradictions, an ancient warlord invading modern London, symbolizing fears of foreign influence and the clash between old and new. The novel's structure, letters, diaries, news clippings, made the horror feel real. Heroes used both science and superstition to fight the Count, reflecting the era's anxieties. Dracula has never been out of print, inspiring countless adaptations. Every modern vampire story exists in its shadow, whether following or rebelling against Stoker's rules. Stoker transformed a folk monster into a global icon. Dracula is the standard by which all vampires are measured. The Count's legacy endures, shaping our nightmares and fantasies. The vampire had become immortal in more ways than one. Its story continues to evolve with every generation. From ancient demons to Dracula, the vampire's journey is long and fascinating. It began as an explanation for disease and death, evolving into a figure of dark romance and forbidden desire. Today, the vampire is a global icon, endlessly adaptable. Why does it endure? Because the vampire is a mirror, reflecting our fears, desires, and anxieties. It offers a fantasy of immortality, power, and eternal youth, even as it reminds us of our mortality. The vampire is a monster, but a deeply human one. Each generation reinvents the myth to suit its own concerns: disease, desire, or the fear of the unknown. The vampire can be villain, anti-hero, or romantic lead, a blank canvas for our imagination. It embodies the conflict between civilization and the monster within. The vampire reminds us that mystery and shadow still exist, even in a world of science and reason. Its story endures because it speaks to the heart of the human condition. As long as we ponder life, death, love, and fear, we'll keep inviting the vampire in. The night is eternal, and the legend lives on.